apparently only Chris is fill-in for Chris Carter. That was in his contract.
I'm going to just say this. I can get used to this. Came into the office this morning, got a fresh edge up. Somebody went and got coffee for me.
Right?
Things are pretty nice. Got my jacket steamed.
It's all downhill after that. That's it. They suck up to you, then they throw you out to the wolves to do the show.
They treat us nice here. They treat us nice here. And by the way, the reason Chris Carter's off on this Friday before NFL season beginning is because Chris is calling the Titans-Dolphins game
on Sunday.
And you know who's doing sideline for that game? Our friend Sarah Kusta.
Yep,
so that's
nice
a game.
Team.
If you're a First Things First fan, if you can check out, you should do that.
Chris Carter, Sam Rosen, and Sarah Kusta. But we are so happy to have you here. We've loved your insight all along, so it should be a fun 3 hours. A lot to get to on the program. Tom Brady starts his quest for a 6th Super Bowl. Dak Prescott looks to enter year 3 on the right foot, but we start with the NFL season opener. Last night's game between the Eagles and the Falcons. It was a rematch of last year's NFC divisional game, and like last year, the Eagles won. This time, thanks to 2 touchdowns from Jay Ajayi. Like last year, Matt Ryan and the Atlanta offense stalled out in the red zone multiple times, including during the final possession. The Eagles offense ran that play, much sputtering, so much behind Nick Foles, they had to dust out the Philly special again. After the game, Foles discussed what went into that decision.
Honestly, we were both thinking the same thing at the same time. I went over there to talk to him and say this might be a good time, and he pointed to the call sheet, and I was like, that's what I was coming over here for. So it, worked again.
The biggest thing again, no panic on the sideline, resiliency, toughness, hanging with each other through all the, kind of the ups and downs, the ebb and flow of the game, the mistakes, the penalties, turnover. Just the guys hanging together. Again, there was no panic tonight.
So when you get your chances against a good defense like that, you've got to capitalize on your opportunities. So disappointed. I thought we battled. We fought like crazy. We knew it was going to be a tough game coming in here. It was going to be in a 60-minute game. It was that way. But it's disappointing to not leave here with a win.
Look, guys, this wasn't a great game by either team in this one. Certainly not the way they wanted to come out. We found out before the game Carson Wentz could be out several weeks. So, Nick, I start with you. Are you confident in the Eagles and in Nick Foles after what you saw last night?
Oh, I'm not confident in Nick Foles at all. Not at all. My level of confidence in Nick Foles is about where it was when Carson Wentz got hurt the first time or when he got hurt initially. And I said, well, now you're drawing dead to win a Super Bowl. You lose an MVP and go to Nick Foles. But I am as confident as ever in the players surrounding Nick Foles, most notably the guys on the other side of the ball. It wasn't just that the defense stymied what I think will be, red zone struggles notwithstanding, a very good Falcons offense, but they did it in brutal conditions. That game, it was 80 degrees at kickoff. It was hot, humid. You saw guys cramping up. And what were the Eagles able to do? Send wave after wave of defensive linemen out there. They were able to stymie the Falcons' running attack. They made Matt Ryan look so bad that I was wondering if he is dealing with an injury. When you look at what the Eagles have coming up, having games against Tampa, Indianapolis, and a Titans team that I actually think the Titans could be good this year, in the next month, if that's about the timeline for Carson Wentz, that defense alone could be enough to win those games because Foles won't play worse than he played yesterday. His best play was a pass catch rather than a throw. So, no, I am not confident in Nick Foles, but I am confident in this Philadelphia Eagles team because mostly of the guys that play the position you used to, those defensive linemen.
Absolutely. And when you talk about competing for a championship, you have to have defensive linemen that can get after the quarterback. And you saw that pass rush on that last Atlanta Falcons drive. Yes. Those guys were getting after Matt Ryan. He didn't have a whole lot of time to set up and to go through the defense, through its progression, and make the right read. So when I look at this team, it's more so about the supporting cast, not Nick Foles, and the confidence that this group has based on what they were able to do last year. Doug Peterson said it in that little clip that we just played. This group didn't panic. After probably one of the worst quarters of football we've seen this offense play in the last couple of years, where they only had 1 total yard, that group came out in the second half. They were able to be productive, put together drives. You saw what Nick Foles was able to do in terms of facilitating the offense. He wasn't great last night. I think it was one of his worst performances as a starting quarterback for the Eagles, but you saw they did enough on the offensive end. The running game came to play. in the second half. You talk about that. They only had 16 yards rushing in the first half. They ended up finishing with over 120 yards rushing. So that's, to me, the biggest part of this thing, being complimentary to the strengths of this team, which is the offensive line and the defense.
And that's where I want to give you credit. You said yesterday, because I was talking about how good I think the Atlanta front seven can be, and you talked about the size differential between the Eagles' offensive line and even a talented Atlanta front seven, an undersized Atlanta front seven. And you said if they're leaning on you throughout the game, because the Falcons don't have the D-line rotation Philly has. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the size. And the Eagles were able to really impose their will. And everything did flip on, as you alluded to, a little variation of the Philly special. They actually ran the play, not that they...
Patriots.
The Patriots play.
The Patriots play, the one that... Brady, where he couldn't make the catch, that's the play they ran. From that moment forward, their offense at least had a little bit of flow to it.
But is the team good enough? And you both mentioned the supporting cast. Is that cast supporting enough that they could withstand Nick Foles and keep Carson Wentz out until he's ready to come back?
Well, I think they can do the job. If you're talking about a 6 to 8 game sample size for Nick Foles, I trust the supporting cast will be able to help him keep this team consistently competitive throughout that stretch. But when you look at the things that have success in the postseason, at the end of the regular season, it's the running game, it's defense, being able to stop the run, being able to get after the quarterback. This Philadelphia Eagles team can do those two things at a very high level, almost an elite level.
And I would be really concerned if the Eagles had the schedule the next 2 weeks the Falcons have. If the Eagles were about to play Carolina and New Orleans, I would say, okay, this could be a problem. But the Eagles are about to play Tampa and Indy. Like, two teams that Tampa's, I think, bad on both sides of the ball, and Indy certainly does not have the offensive personnel on the line to deal with that Eagles pass rush, and doesn't have the defensive personnel on the line to deal with the Eagles offensive line. So that's where it really does matter who you have coming up.
All right, let's talk about the Falcons. How worried should this team be about what their offense looked like?
They should break glass in case of emergency. It's time to panic if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, just because they didn't play well in situational football. You look at those two opportunities they had on the first two drives of the game, the goal-to-goal situation. They were stopped on fourth down, didn't get any points out of that. They got back down there on the next possession, only had to settle for a field goal. You can't keep coming up short against really good teams in those situations. The Falcons missed an opportunity to flip the complexion of that game. All of a sudden, if you're talking about them converting on those two drives and scoring touchdowns, the Eagles are down 14-0, and it's a little bit of panic in that building because it's an offense that hasn't been together the entire preseason. They have not played well. They didn't score a touchdown the entire preseason. The Atlanta Falcons missed an opportunity to put a lot of pressure on Nick Foles and that Philadelphia Eagles team, and they didn't convert. So otherwise, they would have had a chance to be in that game and win that game.
In my eyes, this was worse than losing 31-3 because you lost due to your inability to do something that you said all offseason was your priority to fix. I'm not some oracle. All week leading up to this game, what have I said? This team was great at everything last year offensively except for third downs and really particularly the red zone. For a top 5 caliber offense to be bottom 8 in the league in the red zone, for their season to end because they were bad in the red zone, and first and goal from the 9 against Philly, and you only throw one ball into the end zone. And what did we see yesterday? 5 red zone trips, 1 touchdown, you got the full list. 1 touchdown, 1 field goal, 1 pick, 1 turnover on downs, 1 turnover because the game ended. And some of it was Matt Ryan was bad. Some of it was he made the wrong read. But some of it is, how about that first trip in the red zone? You run 4 plays. Julio Jones isn't even on the field.
Yeah.
He's not even on the field. Your second trip in the red zone. Okay, you have Julio on the field, but you don't throw him the ball once. And now we look holistically at the last 2 years. Matt Ryan, when throwing the ball into the end zone to Julio Jones, is 1 of 20.
Yeah.
1 of 20. So part of that's on Julio, but a lot of that's on Matt Ryan, and a lot of it's on Steve Sarkisian. This was, if you remember the when the Cavs were playing the Raptors, it's going to seem like an odd thing to pull on, but from the end of the regular season, and the Raptors were up huge, and the Cavs came all the way back and won. And I said that was the worst way to lose because it reminded you of what your deficiencies were. To lose this game with a 1st and goal inside the 10, the way you lost your season, and to be in that position because you couldn't convert other 1st and goals. All losses are not created equal.
Right.
This was the worst, barring injuries, this was the worst way for the Falcons to start their season because they told us all offseason, this is what we're working on. Okay, well, you got to work smarter, you got to work harder, you got to work better somehow because you look like a bad offense once you get inside the 20, and everywhere else on the field, you are marching up and down.
All right, so the Eagles beat the Falcons in the season opener. Believe it or not, Nick Foles now 6-1 as a starter.
He got himself a $500,000 bonus last night.
For Carson Wentz, 6-1.
New contract is treating him right.
We are going to talk much more about this game coming up. But on the other side, can Dak Prescott get the Cowboys back to the playoffs? That's next. This is First Things First.